everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just investigate the pointy ears, or the squishy cheeks, or the glandular chin. We explore the whole rabbit. And tonight, we are exploring, arguably, the finest animated film ever made, Akira. Akira! If you haven't seen this movie,
spoiler alerts.
Yeah.
It's like 30 years old. No, it's 31 years old.
Shoot. Yeah. So if you have not seen Akira, the anime, just turn this off right now and go watch it. And then go listen to this again after you've watched it. It's really cool. The reason that we're covering it is because the movie takes place in 2019, which is, I think, warrants us looking at it and exploring it as...
Since we're living in 2019.
Yeah. And we're going to explore it whole rabbit style, where we explore the symbolism from a psychological and a spiritual perspective. We're not really saying whether or not the artist did it intentionally or not, but it's pretty clear to see the level of mastery around everything Akira is. The movie is incredible. The cinematography, the sound, music.
Animation.
Yeah, the animation, just everything about the movie is top-notch incredible. So it really makes you think that these people were tapped in, specifically Katsuhiro Otomo, the director and the writer of the Akira film and manga of the same name. It was the most expensive anime of its time. It had a $9 million budget. Wow, does it show? I mean, just watching it, it's on the level of, I'd say, like The Matrix level of exciting. It's gritty and violent, and it's fast-paced, and there's action sprinkled throughout every part of the movie.
Oh, yeah. And the music score is amazing.
It seems like the music score, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but it sounds really experimental, like they're like drums, and it's not like an 80s action movie.
Xylophones, dude.
Yeah.
You can hear them go off, but it's quite an amazing movie, given how art has far more meanings than is very apparent to the eye, even beyond the artist's ability to understand or comprehend.
Because that happens. I mean, sometimes when an artist makes something, they put hidden meaning and hidden symbols into their art without even knowing it. Robert Anton Wilson was talking about the premiere of his play Cosmic Trigger.
Yeah.
And there's a scene in Cosmic Trigger where a cult doses themselves with cyanide and kills themselves. It just so happened that this play, Cosmic Trigger, happened to premiere on the same day that Jim Jones killed his entire congregation by drinking cyanide-laced Kool-Aid. It was actually Flavor Aid, if you listen to...
Yeah, don't drink the Flavor Aid.
Yeah, don't drink the Flavor Aid. Thanks, Last Podcast on the Left, for straightening that out. We don't want to blame Kool-Aid for that. It was Flavor Aid. But, you know...
Even if it was flavorful, it was full of cyanide. That couldn't taste good.
But that's an example how an artist will incorporate something into their art and have it basically become real on accident. I don't think Robert Anton Wilson had any part to play in Jim Jones's evil congregation or suicide, which did not seem to be very well planned out anyway.
Maybe he was just tapped in.
And I guess that's what it comes down to, is we're suggesting that artists can be tapped in, even if they don't cognitively know what it is they're tapped into, or in this case, possibly prophesizing. We're tempted to watch Akira and see prophecy.
Well, this is also, given the fact that we're in 2019,
yeah,
and we're seeing kind of some of the things they portray in Akira happening as we speak. The one thing I noticed last time I watched this movie, and this was back in 2017, it wasn't quite 2019 yet, but I had the epiphany that this movie, this piece of art,
it's definitely a masterpiece.
Yes, it's definitely a masterpiece of its medium. It describes the state of the internet in 2019 in pictorial fashion as if it were a dream.
Furthermore, if we're going to build on that, the internet itself, you could say, is a reflection of our collective unconscious. There you have it. We're looking at Neo Tokyo both as a representation of our collective unconscious and the political state of the internet.
Yeah, it's the state of the internet. Neo Tokyo is the internet.
To begin the movie, it starts in 1988, and the bomb explodes July 16th. If you look up the information about the movie, that was the same day that the movie was released to audiences in Japan.
So this is like a weird, crazy holographic fractal that they're kind of doing, and it's kind of a really great trick. Like they're saying, oh, a bomb goes off in this day that you're watching this movie that it came out.
And so
the bomb
so it's pretty,
was Akira.
Yeah, it's meta right away. Just that alone taps you into the idea that it might be symbolic because, World War III did not start in 1988 on July the 16th. It just didn't. But perhaps it did in the astral. Perhaps it did in the imaginal world within the consciousness of the population, you could say. Man, when I first saw Akira in high school, I was just told to watch it because I was curious about anime, and somebody somewhere, maybe even a stranger on the internet, said...
Someone gave you a dose of the good shit.
They were like, if you want to get into anime, you need to really start from the thing that really began it all, and that was Akira. And I was like, okay. So I went to my local video store and I rented it, and of course it was an English dub, I think. I mean, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was an English dub. And even though I might not even been in high school, I might have been in middle school. Either way, like freshman in high school, watching this movie, I was blown away. And like typical Luke fashion, when I watched anime as a kid, it always frustrated me because it felt like the story was always starting in the middle and ending in the middle. At least to me, as a young American kid.
Well, it is. It's a manga. This is just like a really cool part of the story arc.
Don't a lot of animes work that way? How it feels like there's some story you're missing before the beginning of the film, and then
like later on they flash back to it. That's their trick, is they start where the story gets interesting, and then they flash back to be all like, oh, this is what built their character. They were like a child and this traumatic thing happened. That's how all anime, manga, that's how it works.
And I felt that made it impenetrable to me as a kid. It took me until about high school to really start diving in, and it took me until about now, now that I'm 31.
Oh shit, you're as old as Akira.
I was born I was born in 87, so around the same time period. And I've been hearing my whole life like, oh, there was a galactic convergence in 87, so who knows? What all that means is there was some awakening or some enlightenment energy that was coming through. That's all that means, right? So this would be part of that if you subscribe to that idea of ascension and the point.
Oh shit, I didn't even notice this before, but they're the Indigo Children.
The Indigo Children?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, so that's part of the 87 galactic convergence is the idea of the Indigo Children that were like birthing these super children. Right? Isn't that part of that whole shtick?
I believe so.
So,
I'm sure somebody will correct us.
Okay. The reason we can cover Akira now, after having done the other episodes, is because it's totally relevant to all the past episodes we've covered.
Yeah, it just turns out to be.
It just does, in almost every regard. For starters, and this is really hard to catch if you're a freshman in high school that's never watched an anime and maybe doesn't even have a brain for a super complex narrative. If you're me, you watch Akira like the first time and you're just so blown away by the imagery. You're like, what the hell is going on? Like, I remember texting my friend Rona and I was like, what is this movie actually about? Because it touches on so many, like, it's almost like watching a newsreel of the modern day or something. It's like watching modern day memes come alive or something. It's truly fascinating, and I think that's why Andrew is justified in saying, oh, it represents the internet. And that's sort of where we begin with our analysis, is the apparent conflict between the red pills or the heroics and the clowns, which
if they're the heroics, because like we don't know, like I swear that's a translation error.
I just picked it up. Yeah, I could be wrong.
Yeah. I think that's just a translation error. I don't
there
know
is an answer to this question, though. I'm sure we could figure out what Kaneda and Tetsuo's gang is.
He said something. He's in charge of the heroics at one point when they're butting heads.
Yeah, and so I just picked that up. So maybe I think
qualifier, guys, qualifier.
Yeah, I might have that wrong.
Don't eat us alive.
But so we're just gonna look at it from the symbolic point of view. So.
Okay,
so you've got like this one crew that's sort of like this ragtag group of orphans, and they're a biker gang, and they don't seem to have like a costume really, or they don't really seem to have any theme, except their leader,
Kaneda.
Kaneda has a pill on his jacket.
Well, okay, so
you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so this is my theory. Neo Tokyo represents the internet. Obviously, the streetways are the different chat rooms and sites and forums.
Imageboards.
Yeah, Imageboards and places to post, right?
4chan.
And then you open up to our protagonist, Kaneda. Now, Kaneda has, like, a full, like, red gear. He drives a cool-ass customized red bike.
It's all red.
Yeah, and he has a pill on his jacket. I think I'm safe in saying that he represents the red-pilled individual.
And even if that's on accident, like
Yes.
as a symbol.
Because this was way before the Matrix.
This is way before the Matrix, and the red pill on 4chan may have connotations of alt-right or ultra-conservatism, but prior to that idea, the red pill had an implication of truth-seeking. It has or the unpopular truth, or the truth that people aren't supposed to know, etc., etc. You get the impression that Kaneda and his gang are red-pilled. They're a little bit more tapped into the truth and the nature of reality and the nature of the world.
Oh, and there's constant scenes where they're asking questions about shit that's going on around them. It's like, why are they acting like that? Why did the government grab Tetsuo?
Oh, you're right.
They're actually asking questions and trying to figure out what's going on.
I mean, as the audience,
And that's what it really means to be red-pilled.
I mean, unless you've got some special access or you're somebody, who else are you going to relate to in the story except these red pill characters? They're the ones who are trying to figure out what the heck is going on, what's going on with their friends.
How do they help their friends?
How do they help their friends and live their life, you know? In the case of Kaneda, he's also trying to get laid, because there's a chick who also wears red.
Kai.
They just call her Kay most of the time.
Yeah, Kay. Oh, yeah, her name is Kay. Like, that's my mistake.
And she's like a mirror to Kaneda. I didn't fully notice all the things she does in the film the first few times I've seen it, but she is sort of like a mirror to Kaneda, and it's really unspoken and they don't really build on it too much, but I think it's there.
But anyways, back to the thing.
So yeah, clowns versus red pills. So if you go on 4chan right now, you're gonna see Honkler.
Oh yeah, the Honkler meme is totally like, as soon as that came out, I was telling you, we have to talk about this, because now it's actually occurring. It is literally occurring before our eyes.
I didn't really understand what Andrew was on about the first time, because I didn't know if but once I saw the Honkler meme, I was like, okay, I think he's got a point here.
All right, so we all know what clown world is, and that's like what the clown biker gang represents. It represents all the clowns on the internet making stupid arguments and getting their asses handed to them.
Well, okay, sure.
Yeah, I'm not taking a side. I just noticed how it seems to be going.
But if you go and you look up Honkler and the Honkler meme, it's pretty simple to understand. It's basically that the world is going to shit. Doctors make people sick.
Just Joker shit.
Yeah, the Joker. The world is upside down and insane, so you might as well just laugh and watch it burn.
It's also right side round for the people who don't understand that they live in a clown world. So not only is everything backwards, but it's also forwards. So you just gotta sit back and laugh.
You lost me there, but I get the sentiment of what you're saying. Like, being well-adjusted, in a crazy world is no measure of one's good health. That's what, Krishnamurti said. Get him a Rolls Royce, please.
Doesn't he have a Rolls Royce?
Anyway.
Does that guy need a Rolls Royce?
Just send him another one.
Doesn't he have legs?
Now he's dead.
Oh, well. He's probably in a more spiritual place.
Yeah, he's watching from above right now. That's another episode. We're not talking about that right now.
We're talking about Akira.
Yeah. That's where the symbolism kind of kicks in. It's like, oh, we got these people that are seeking the truth, that aren't afraid to break the rules. They steal bikes.
And then you got a bunch of clowns.
You got a bunch of clowns to fight them. Just trying to fight them and watch the world burn. That's sort of the dichotomy we have right now on the internet. After that, the movie jumps right into some really dark stuff about the military experimenting on kids to uncover hidden human potential so that it can be weaponized.
MKULTRA.
MKULTRA. Man,
Ultra MK.
We took one dip into that pool.
Oh, that's some scary stuff, dude. That affects your mind quick.
I saw some stuff that legit creeped me out, and that's a whole other episode. You
need to just leave it there, because that's a little personal, a little deep.
We don't want to talk about everything MKUltra right now, but we will tell you the basics, and you can go on Wikipedia right now and look up all the normie information that's available to you about MKUltra, and if you just read all the way through just the Wikipedia, it should creep you out really badly. There's nothing not creepy about Project MKUltra. If you don't know about it, just go on Wikipedia, just Google the thing, it'll pop up, and there'll be lots of information. Don't start with the conspiracy stuff on YouTube right away. Just go straight to Wikipedia.
Yeah, just dip a toe in the water. See if something bites you first.
Yeah, really. Go straight to Wikipedia, and right there, we're going to be able to find the declassified CIA documents for the next episode on this very easily. They're all right there. What we'll say about it is the Central Intelligence Agency basically got caught forcefully testing LSD on humans in an attempt to produce effective mind control for the purpose of creating assassins and other types of agents. They did all sorts of really bad things in these experiments. On the Wikipedia page, it even says sexual abuse is one of the things that happened.
We all know how bad that is. It's so goddamn important right now.
Yeah, they did really bad things to civilians, and it looks to be kids as well. What they were trying to produce were agents or who knows what. If we're going to believe what Michael Aquino says, the author of the Mind War document that was produced for the Pentagon, Michael Aquino, the head of the Temple of Set, if you're going to believe what he says, they didn't find anything useful in those experiments and that it was just a barbaric waste of time. However, you can see right here on the Wikipedia page that MKUltra was officially sanctioned in 1953, reduced in its scope in 64, curtailed again in 67, and recorded to be halted in 73. Now, I'm sorry, but if you're doing experiments for 20-something years, you probably found something useful. You probably are messing around with something that was reproducible. Like I said, we don't want to get too into the weeds on this, but
not yet.
But when I first saw Akira in high school, the second they start dealing with the military messing around with kids and human potential, it's like, oh, this is purely sci-fi. This isn't real at all. You know, that was my first reaction. Well,
or is it?
Or is it? That was watching Akira now that I'm 31 had that effect on me where I'm like, okay, maybe a little bit less of this is fiction than I thought. And if you go back and you can see the declassified documents that we showed you in the episode about remote viewing, you can see just from those documents all the different experiments that were done to test human psychic potential. And we know that the CIA had an interest in that avenue of thought. So Akira is not entirely fictional in that account. Tetsuo comes into contact with one of these experiments early in the movie, and that plot doesn't really, you have to really pay attention closely, otherwise that plot gets kind of lost in the weeds, at least it does for me. But basically what you find out in Akira is there's a corrupt element in the government that's leaking the Akira project or the Human Potential Project to the population in order to cause radical insurrection. Why? Because this corrupt element in the government wants to reform society the way it believes society should be reformed. That's a pretty classical bad guy move. You know? That's a pretty
cause disaster so you can create like a response.
Yeah, ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos, create the problem
and offer a solution. Emperor shit.
So if you watch the movie closely, that seems to be what's driving the conflict in the movie.
Or the larger conflict.
The more immediate conflict that the population is involved in. But the initial conflict, of course, is the military mucking around with kids and trying to turn them into weapons. I don't think that needs any qualifiers. Are we really going to sit here and tell people that's bad? I think people know that's bad. So, straw man, I just told you it's bad. Yeah, it's bad. Don't be mind controlling kids. If you're involved with that shit, just quit. I'm sure that, you know what? I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you mind control kids for a living, you probably work in advertising, but and you got a job to do. You got
to sell them toys.
You got to sell them toys, man.
Get them ready for their jobs 30 years down the line.
Working on factories, because you can't even sell them toys that are complete now. Now you got to sell them toys in little parts and teach the kids how to assemble them themselves. It's insulting.
They got to learn how to assemble parts.
I got to pay
into a electronic device. You got to learn how to assemble.
Yeah, what? I got to pay $6 for a toy my kid's got to assemble himself? Don't they got,
I'm paying for somebody's labor.
Yeah, I'm paying for somebody's slave labor to do this for me. I mean, damn it, Honkler, get out of my brain.
Take the honk pill.
No, it's not right. So basically, you've got the leader of the gang, Kaneda. He's always taken the younger Tetsuo under his wing.
Okay, here's something that'll make way more sense that I didn't know about, and like I always thought anime was like kind of stupid with how certain characters act, until my buddy who actually studies Japanese culture told me about the concept of senpai. Now,
I didn't know about this either.
Yeah, and it makes everything make way more sense in Japanese culture. Your senpai is you're the guy. He's like the cool guy, the guy in charge. He's your best friend, and you only hope to be his friend.
He's like the leader.
Yeah, he's basically the leader. And you do everything for your senpai. So if senpai says like, "Oh, I would like a Coke or something," you're supposed to get up and buy him one. Like, you just, if he wants to use your bike, you just let him. You know, like that's just how it goes. It's kind of done. Like he always gets shotgun.
And so that seems to be an important part of the story, where Kaneda is like an older brother figure to Tetsuo, and it's Tetsuo who runs into Subject 26 in the beginning of the film and gains some semblance of psychic power.
Oh, let's drop a cult bomb right there with Subject 26.
Yeah, it's this. Basically, when you see Subject 26, it looks like a little old man, and he's got 26 on his palm. You find out later he's actually a psychic little kid that's been given medication so he doesn't like go nuclear
or age.
So he ages without aging, and he looks like a really old little kid. But he has 26 on his palm, and as Tetsuo is about to hit him on his bike, he holds out his palm, which has 26 on it, and it creates like a little bubble around him, and it prevents the explosion from hurting him.
Well, it prevents the bike from running him over.
Yeah,
which creates the explosion.
Which creates the explosion, right. And in the occult world, when you're doing a banishing of the lesser pentagram, all the god names that you're saying in the 4 directions all enumerate to 26. So that's kind of fun. And then 26 is the enumeration of the tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He in Hebrew. So that may have been a thing. They may have done that. And as time has gone on, as I've learned more about Hermeticism, I've found that for some reason Japanese anime seems to like have a lot of it going on in it. I don't know why that is.
Whether it's intentional or not, it's in there.
It has to be, right? I honestly think the Japanese understand the Western Hermetic secrets better than we do at this point.
Well, I tell people, if you want to know about ceremonial magic, just study Japanese culture, because everything's a goddamn ceremony. Everything.
Man, I tell you what, watching Akira and just getting a little bit into this stuff makes me want to go to Japan so bad. It makes me really like love and appreciate the culture like a lot. I think it's really easy to fall in love with Japanese culture when you're exposed to some of this. Like, Akira is just so brilliant. I just can't speak highly enough of it. Moving on, I think, should we just cut right to the chase? Like, I think we need to. Basically...
Yeah, let's cut to the chase.
Cut to the chase. As Tetsuo gains his powers... It's pretty clear that the movie is all about characters coming to Tetsuo and being like, you're using your powers incorrectly. You're not using you're using your potential wrongly. You're becoming violent and animalistic with your godlike powers, and it does nothing but create evil. I guess that's kind of a moral message, but in the meta, let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, it's crazy. Like, that's the one thing is their powers. But in the concept of Neo Tokyo, what are these powers? The power of censorship, the ability to get something censored. This is why the little kids have the ability to, like, they have the powers, is because you have to protect kids with censorship, and that's also kind of why they have that military strength behind them.
But I don't know, like, so what do you mean? Like, their psychic powers equate to censorship? Because to me, I thought all the psychic powers in the movie, if we're gonna relate Neo Tokyo to the astral world or to the internet,
things like,
well, like meme magic and being,
yes, that's also another thing that it represents.
You know, if you look.
So the military represents the censorship as well.
Okay, the military. Okay, so we just wanted to clear that up. Like,
yeah.
The military represents the forces of censorship and pulling stuff down offline, and
same with the government as well.
Trying to protect the population. If you look at the situation on the internet, you have these supposed red pill people which are getting leaked these big secrets, which in the mainstream are considered conspiracy theories, but to anyone
Alex Jones.
yeah, anyone who actually takes 5 seconds to look into any of this material, which is what this podcast is all about, you'll discover that the whole rabbit goes pretty deep. We're coming up to an age where this stuff has to be revealed, and it will be revealed because more and more people are finding out about it. Like what I was talking about with the MKULTRA experiments and the Stanford experiments into psychic ability, and generally that whole thing. We'll show you more as more shows go on. We don't have that many shows to harken back to with material, but those are the shows we got. Anyway.
Okay, and so their psychic powers would then equate to their ability to actually use, like, being tech savvy as well as being able to manipulate algorithms.
Yes, and to manipulate human consciousness with memes.
Even to the point where they're causing actual political change.
Yeah, so I guess that's the idea, is that if you there's a whole subset of people online that view their ability to master their online
Hong Kong.
Yeah. Basically, people are using their knowledge online as power. So knowledge is power. People are doing crazy powerful things like I'm pretty sure the Pepe people would claim that they successfully stopped Hillary Clinton and elected Donald Trump. Whether you agree with it or not, they would argue that they caused that.
Well, no. They helped. Okay, they definitely got a shot in, because as soon as a presidential candidate makes a reference to a goddamn cartoon frog, this is this hate symbol. It's a cartoon frog. It means whatever you believe in.
If you watch Akira, the basic subtext is that knowledge is power. If you ride your bike along the information highway and you investigate the secrets, if you just look at the declassified documents, you'll be able to see the world is not what we've been told it is. Humans are not cattle. We're beings that have the powers of God within us, and we have the ability to make artwork and bridges, and
we make crazy shit.
We make things. That's something that's addressed in Akira. That's where the power comes from. I think that's true. I think that's the awakening that we're seeing now. That's the truth of the red pill. We were born into slavery, but we're not slaves. We're something greater. With that greater nature and that greater power comes, oh boy, here comes Spider-Man, comes responsibility. And so when Tetsuo...
Damn, that was Spider-Man as fuck.
So when Tetsuo gains the power of a god, his whole problem is that he's still operating at the mentality of a hurt little orphan that was abandoned by his parents. He's still operating from the perspective of somebody that's wounded and damaged by the world. He
still feels weak even with the power.
Like, he has been so wounded by the clown world that he's driven by no other urge than to show dominance and to destroy anything in front of him. In the film,
oh shit, that's Looper. Like, that's the plot of Looper, dude.
It is. That there's a
Holy
lot.
Shit.
Yeah, that happens in Looper. Is Rainmaker. He gains those powers. There's nothing really to stop him. Yeah, there's a lot of Akira going on in Rainmaker.
Or Looper.
Excuse me.
They should make a movie called Rainmaker. Oh wait, he ended the loop.
And now the guy who directed that movie gets to direct his own Star Wars trilogy. Sorry if you hate him.
Well, it's not that we hate him. He's made a bad Star Wars movie. It looked good.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, dude, that's a whole other
That
movie.
is a whole other 3-part series where we argue about Star Wars continuously.
Oh, no, that's Mystery Science Theater-esque. We argue about Star Wars.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
That ain't even this podcast, man.
But we're going to totally do that now.
We will analyze the symbols and the meaning of Star Wars at some point, especially if you guys start asking. I guess to shore things up on Akira, I mean, what else do we want to say?
Oh, there's plenty more. There's the radicalization of the people. Basically, there's anti-government groups.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
Protesting. There's nothing but protests going on in the world right now.
So where do we fit into this whole picture? Because
there's terrorist attacks, explosions, people dying, police state.
So you've got all these radicals, right, which are opposed to all the corruption that's going on in the government.
The yellow vests.
You got all these radicals, and they're fighting the government in Akira, right? And they're being fed these leaks by the government. There's a rabbit-looking character that has a heart condition who munches on pills and basically meets his demise chewing on the pills in the street.
Oh, and he explains his evil fucking plot to make changes in the city by, like, setting off the people with the Akira project.
Right,
leaking this shit.
Right, we discussed that earlier, but the whole idea here is that he's doing it to cause insurrection. And it's funny because all this stuff is being, if you watch closely, all the chaos in the film is being caused by humans just being bad, using their powers for evil. Because that's really what I meant to say.
The one thing I noticed is Tetsuo's got kind of like, or should I say, Kylo Ren has a very Tetsuo-style story where he's not really being a bad guy. It's kind of he's being forced to be a bad guy. He's being pushed into a corner because of how he's been treated. If he's given abuse, all he knows is abuse. So that's all he's going to do is abuse. And that's a big theme in the entire movie, is that the abused become the abusers. The victims become the victimizers.
And yeah, I guess that speaks to the cycle of suffering, and the cycle of abuse is really what it's called, cycle of abuse. Here in Akira, though, it extends to the whole human family. It says, what other conclusion are you going to draw from watching the film? If we had the power of gods, we would either A, misuse it, and if B, we didn't misuse it, then we would have to use it responsibly.
But here's the thing, is how the fuck do you use the power of a god responsibly? If you're just gonna, like, float rocks around, well, like, we can tie them up with strings. Like, you know, at what point do we, like, need to do stuff before we think we're, like, really powerful, or as beings? We got shit floating around the planet, like, not coming down. We defied that old maxim, what goes up must come down.
It really makes you look at anonymous image boards like 4chan, and it really makes you wonder,
what's in there? What's real? What's going on there? Like, what are the secrets?
Yeah, what are the secrets? Like, how, like, at this point, I'm willing to believe, and there's some evidence to show, that humans have psychic ability.
That seems to be the whole point of the military in this entire thing, is like they're trying to prevent people from figuring out that they have psychic abilities.
Meanwhile, on the internet, we have, like, it's mostly apparent in the UFO community. If you look at all the stuff online right now, it's all about Disclosure 2019, David Wilcock, and that other guy we talk about sometimes, Stephen Greer, and the Hollow Moon lady, Linda Muldoon, I think.
Oh, that chick's funny. I love her.
She's really cool. But in those spheres, that material is coming out like on a week by week basis. There's talk that there's supposedly a big bust that's going to go down against basically the global ring of pedophiles, and it's connected somehow to Hollywood and the NXIVM cult.
Oh, dude, Hollywood's just full of pedophiles.
But then if you're gonna look at what the CIA has done, you can already start to see this really scary, unholy alliance between all the powers that be, abuse, and mucking around with human potential and human psychic power and human spiritual power. Honestly, it's all kind of spooky and creepy. It's equally as impenetrable and hard to understand for me as it was the first time that I saw Akira. Akira creeps me out because I can't help but see Tetsuo and see my generation, or even the younger generation, that once they discover how badly they've been lied to and how badly they've been treated, that they'll be tempted to use their powers for evil. We cut right to the chase. We see some very strong, radical, fascist elements brewing. You can find threads where people are just straight up begging for national socialism and an ethno-state. That's what I saw when I saw Kaneda. He puts on the red cloak. Would you agree that that's what that symbolizes?
No, not Kaneda.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, Tetsuo. Tetsuo, when he's like, when he escapes the hospital and he's
like strung out on drugs and he kills one of his buddies, and it's like the really, like, one of the low points, and he's just absolutely lost it. He's like strung out on red pills.
Yeah, he's strung out on red pills. That's a great way to put it, Andrew. It drives him mad, and he goes mad with power. And I think, well, especially the Japanese understand the power and the temptation of fascism. They were on that side in World War II. They were an imperial nation. And historically speaking, Imperial Japan was brutal. So the character of Tetsuo is an apt representation, I think, of that force and that mentality. It's crazy.
It's the weak strength. That's the problem about it. He's still weak with all the power. Like, he's a weak character. Like, he's weak in character.
Isn't that the characterization we put on the alt-right, is that they're all incels and they're all...
Incel, neckbeard, fedora tipping losers who gotta wake themselves to sleep every night.
Optimistically, they can be like Kaneda. They can be noble. Like, even if they're rebels, even if they're anti-establishment, even if they steal bikes, like, even if they're bad criminals...
They never steal bikes in there. They're just a bike gang.
No, he says no. If you want a bike like this, you go steal your own.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so like they're badasses. So like they're thieves, they're pirates. You know, just like the people on 4chan. So basically, the film is saying like you could be like Tetsuo or you could be like Kaneda. Yeah, of course, everyone wants the power, but like Bilbo Baggins, like how much impact can you really have? You can really just be the best person you can be. You know, it's hard to understand because of the whole senpai thing, you know, because Kaneda obviously tries to kill Tetsuo many times, but at the end of the day, Kaneda is driven by his compassion and love for Tetsuo and his urge and want to protect him, you know.
Yeah, he just wants to help his friend.
He just wants to help his friend, even if at certain points helping his friend means killing him.
Or fighting him with a laser.
Fighting him with a laser gun.
If it was a samurai flick, they would duel.
They would duel, yeah.
Yeah, it would be like, why are we dueling at the very end? It's like somebody else is trying to shoot cannons at us. It makes sense. It makes all the fucking things make sense.
Like
it makes Goku and Vegeta's whole thing make sense because they're constantly battling for who's senpai, because senpai's strongest.
And I guess ultimately that's the that's got to be some like Bushido wisdom, right? Some Eastern wisdom that true strength, true power comes from one's integrity and one's, I think I already said it, it comes from one's integrity and one's honor. Kaneda is heroic because he, even with his insect-like amount of power compared to Tetsuo, his strength of character carries him through to the end, even beyond the catastrophe. So I think that's the good news in the movie. For all the rebels out there on the internet, is that you know, you can have your red pill beliefs and you can find what's wrong with the world and you can unravel the conspiracy, and
you can still be a good guy.
Yeah, don't go to the dark side. Don't go the quick and easy path. Man, who the hell am I quoting right now? It leads to the dark side.
Yeah, that's fucking Ben Kenobi.
We're moving towards a world where everyone is becoming radicalized, and
in either side.
On either side, and violence is on the upswing, and the honkler meme is gaining all this traction because people can just, your average person can look around and see that the world is absolutely crazy.
It's bonkers, dude.
If you were to see it in the dream world, it probably would look like Neo Tokyo. And then if you consider the fact that we're now slowly discovering human potential and our own godlike powers and potential, it really throws a lot of gasoline on the fire, and we have to act responsibly with these powers that we're learning about, basically. I sound like we're all levitating chairs and stuff in our living rooms at night, but
not really, but like we're still
learning. Like,
there are some psychic powers that people have. Like, I think it's more of like lending brain capacity, but that's me.
You know, that's why we have this podcast, is we're investigating this stuff ourselves. Man, I guess we don't have much more to say about Akira. It would have been fun to maybe dip into some of the more like concrete examples of symbolism in the film, but I think we kind of covered the bigger themes, you know, like
there's a few, like I can name a couple off the top of my head. And
like, what do their bikes represent? We went round and round about this yesterday. I don't even think we'll agree now. Like, I sort of think it represents their people's computers.
The bike represents your ideology, your vehicle, your how you navigate through all these thoughts on the internet. And so when Tetsuo is checking out Kaneda's bike early on, he's checking out his ideology. It's like, how do you think? You know, and dude's like, oh no, that's a custom bike. Like, I customized that myself. You couldn't handle it. It's like his own thoughts. He thinks for himself. He's an individual.
You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the way I think.
Yeah, you can't handle the way I think.
You damn normies, you damn NPCs or whatever.
Yeah.
That whole bit.
Sort of deal. Because a lot of people can hold contrary points of view. And I believe the term they use now is called heterodox, if you're part of the dark web.
Not familiar with this terminology, but I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
Also, some other relevant symbolism I think we just wanted to mention real quick. Even the name Tetsuo Shima, to me, sounds like the test at Hiroshima, or the Hiroshima test. Tetsuo Shima. I don't know. Maybe I'm drawing at straws here, but once again, that could be the artist.
Well, Shima means island, so...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And he is kind of an island to himself at some point. That's part of his problem, is he sees himself... The problem with Tetsuo is explained by number 25 as he's basically like an amoeba with the power of a god, where his only real MO is to consume. That's why Tetsuo does what he does.
Also, he's like part of a friend group that he doesn't feel like he's a part of, and all of his friends just want to help him, but he just sees them as trying to, like, he sees himself as a burden unto them. He just assumes they don't want him around.
And even when everyone's trying to tell him, like, hey, you can't do this, or you should do this, or you shouldn't do that, he's like, yeah, I don't care. Yeah, whatever.
But he's like the quickest learner. That guy's like learning, he like learns everything really quick. Even in the thing where he's checking out Kaneda's bike, he's like, oh, that's how this works.
So at no point are we saying, like, deep down inside, Tetsuo is strong and good, but he loses his way.
Yeah, he doesn't have confidence in himself. That's the problem, even with the powers. He's like, even he sees his friend and he still has an inferiority complex. And at the end of the day, isn't that the problem that most people see with, like, ethno-nationalists and stuff?
In the end, Tetsuo, it stops being him gaining power and it starts being his power controlling him. And he sits down on the throne of the 2020 Olympic throne, which is part of a stadium which is being built still in the film. And he rapidly begins to mutate, and he becomes
the gross baby.
Yeah,
he becomes the gross slime baby thing. We all know what that's about. We know that meme.
He starts mutating and growing to this grotesque size, and he's made of flesh.
If you think about it, he's sort of taking on the shape of how he feels.
Yeah, like a child,
like a baby, like some grotesque baby.
Oh wow, I never even saw it that way. Eventually, he consumes his girlfriend, and she dies. He ends up destroying pretty much everything he loves, and it's only through the mercy of these other, ascended masters does he have any sort of recourse or peace. Only a handful of characters survive. It doesn't end well. It doesn't end well for Tetsuo, really. And I guess that's the point, is that it basically, like, if you want to see a Nazi America, if you want a fascist state, if you want an ethno state, yeah, it might sound like a great idea. It may make you feel like you're powerful, like it's giving you what you need and what you want, and it's your direction in life, and like you can now stomp out all the evil in your life. Well, that power is that idea, or that image of power will eventually take over. It won't care what you want or what you think. First they came for this guy, and then they came for that guy. And I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So I mean, and eventually it's you. Eventually you're the one who's not racially pure enough. Eventually you're the one who's getting thrown in.
Yeah, purity spirals in anything are bad. They just cause problems, and it just becomes a game of who can enact some sort of evil sort of power over another person.
And it's true. If you look at dictatorships, they kill their friends. The dictator has to eliminate all of the strong people around him so he doesn't get overthrown, and it creates a situation where, and Robert Anton Wilson talks about this in Prometheus Rising, where in a fascist state you have an information crisis where everyone has to tell their boss that everything is going fine. So you have this.
Oh, I was thinking about this earlier today at work.
So like the Führer will kill you if things are not going fine.
The burden of nescience.
So yeah, like you have to tell the Führer that everything is going fine, and then all the people below you have to tell you that everything is going fine, and all the people underneath them. And so the more you monitor and the more you try and keep track of everything, the less you actually know.
No one under you cannot...
No one can tell the truth.
Yeah, no one under the boss can tell the boss anything that conflicts with the boss's preconceived idea of the world.
Yeah, out of fear.
And world means everything. Like how work is going, how the parts are, what the shipment's at, everything.
So you might think it's fun or funny, throw gasoline on the fire or root for the bad guy, but ultimately it's basically going to come around to not only destroying you but everything you love. I guess that's our spin on it.
I mean, let's face it, even Germans hate Germany now.
Yeah, go watch the Rammstein video.
Oh, it's a good video.
It's such a great video, and
Deutschland.
I mean, do what you want with the symbolism, but the lyrics are pretty clear. He's basically saying, like, I want to love my country, but there's so much evil in it. And isn't that the story of all of our nations? Isn't that the story of what it means to be us, ourselves? Is
It's the whole human predicament.
It is the whole human predicament. We have to redeem ourselves. I'm not saying don't pray to Jesus or whatever. If you're a Christian, go ahead and be redeemed through Christ. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying something needs to redeem us. We need to back away from just taking unlimited power and using it to just destroy anything in our path. That's not the right way to go. It's not going to solve our problems. At least if
or any sort of power will destroy.
And that's the message in Akira, and I'm sorry, but
because eventually, there is something that's so powerful, its mere presence destroys everything around because, you kind of woke it up.
And I mean, that's really our message, and I think that's the message we interpreted from Akira.
Well, also at the very, very end, after the entire city's annihilated, Kaneda saved, the very, very end, the Akira, the big explosion, turns into a tiny little bead and falls into Kaneda's hand.
And he gets like a little glowy energy.
Yeah. And that really makes me hope for the future, because I think by the end of the year, the internet will be destroyed.
Whoa, big prophecy. I hope not. We got a podcast to do.
It'll be put back into the hands of the users. Like, what the internet is now will be destroyed, and it will become something a little bit more user-friendly, and it has to do with all these gigantic tech platforms being overthrown by the users, by the user populace, because everyone's sick of Facebook.
Well, yeah, I mean, we found out that they were working with Cambridge Analytica to manipulate our emotions. To literally manipulate our emotions to see how far they could push us.
They're using psychic powers in a bad way.
There you go.
Trying to fuck with us psychically.
There you go.
On the internet.
So
there you go. It's Akira.
Look,
we know about it now.
Just because the powers are being used on you for evil doesn't mean you should use the powers for evil. Man, okay, I think we're done being like super strict moralists on our podcast now, because I hate it when other podcasts.
Well, you're a strict moralist. I don't even know what I am.
I got questions. I think people should use their power responsibly. I think that's a no-brainer. Are you gonna believe these fascist morons on 4chan, or are you gonna believe Katsuhiro Otomo, who's obviously a fucking genius? I'm with Katsuhiro on this one. I think he understands it better.
Oh yeah, and like Midnight City, like the song Midnight City totally ripped off the ending of Akira.
The psychic testing scene with the kids?
Yeah. Totally ripped everything off in it. And then the kids get out. That's the music video. There was this big push to try to steal the 80s.
We got vaporwave now.
And we're still a part of it, trying to vaporwave.
I guess to wrap this up, if you want some quality, classic 80s material, go watch Akira. It's so good. It's so good.
Even if you're not into anime, or if you're not into any sort of animation in general, you will still like Akira.
If you thought The Matrix was entertaining, just go watch this. It's that good. It's just so good.
And then go watch The Matrix, because that's a good one. And we should do the same thing for The Matrix as well.
Oh, man. The Matrix would be... We really got to go, like, symbol by symbol by symbol. It's...
that's one of those breakdowns with the movie itself, so people can see it.
We were watching a little clip the other day, and it's like... Neo and Smith are fighting in the subway, and they're out of bullets, and they land, and Neo and Smith are like,
well, Smith says, "You're empty."
And Neo says, "So are you," which is like got all this deeper meaning. Anyway, that's the whole rabbit.
Akira predicted the state of the internet 2019.
And we'll probably have to use all of our psychic powers to stop the population from doing something really violent and stupid at some point. That's sort of what it seems like, at least to me. I just keep your wits about you. Just because you have psychic powers and god powers doesn't mean
magic.
And meme magic doesn't mean you should get innocent people hurt just because you're a dick. Try and use your powers for good. There's plenty action and challenge and to be had in that.
I really hope that it comes true and all the big tech giants get destroyed. Like all their stock collapses and everyone's like, "Oh shit, our bubble burst again."
We want the world to change for the better, or whatever that means. But it's probably going to be. I would like to imagine the world's going to be leaking a bunch of secrets soon. And we're going to get to arrest some bad guys. But, that's just me being hopeful. And we're getting off topic again. But thank you again for listening to The Whole Rabbit. You can catch us on Instagram at The Whole Rabbit and _ after every word.
On
The Whole Rabbit Podcast at gmail.com. You can also comment on our videos at YouTube. We had a really cool story about dreams and sleep paralysis. And we'll probably tell that story on another episode. Thanks for listening. Good night and good luck listening. Good night and good luck listening. Good night and good